So next we have Syraj Syed, and he has been on the stage a lot with Self Narrate. He goes to a lot of their meetups and was also on Guts and Glory GNV's first show ever. So we all value him very much. He does a lot of great work through narrative therapy, through his own business of Your Authentic Self-Worth is what it's called. And so he does a lot of community-based counseling and also in health spaces. And he believes that working through our own narratives creates a lot of healing in a community. And so he helps people put together kind of their personal narratives and stories to create their own healing. So without further ado, Syraj Syed.
How are you guys doing? All right. Okay. So you guys know this story that I'm going to tell, right? Not because you've heard me tell it, maybe some of you have heard me tell it, but really more so because this story is a story that we all experience, a narrative we all live through, right? It's about that time when we first experience change, right? Like real change with real pain, real loss, real fear. And it's about when we first learn that the world isn't quite what was told to us, right? It's different, it's bigger, it's more uncertain, right? So this change came to me, this transition came to me early in my life, and this is that story about that time. Right? So when my dad first came to get me, to take me from Bombay at the time, on a long journey through Heathrow Airport, over to New York, where my mom was, they'd both left years before, take me from my grandparents' home, my dadi amma, my dadaba. I knew it was happening. I knew we were going on this trip, but when he came, right? Late night flight, middle of the night, I woke up groggy and he was standing there, right? A dark silhouette, big, filling the frame of the door, the light pouring in from the hallway. It kind of gave me an uneasy feeling, right? So I scrambled, got together, and then we were in my uncle's old Ambassador, flying down the roads on the way to the airport, late. And the windows were open. Smells were going by. A paratha stand, exhaust from the Tata buses, and sounds were going by. My life was going by, right? The life that I was leaving behind me to go on this completely uncertain journey. So that was my point of acceptance, right? This is happening. I'm going. So cut to the Air India 747, right? We're 4 hours into the flight. And all told, with the layover in Heathrow, it's like 22 hours, give or take, moments of agony, right? And so we're on this flight, we're 4 hours in, and it sucks, right? The comics are boring, the books are boring. There are no portable music devices I could plug into because there wasn't any portable anything at that time, right? So I'm there, and my dad's elbow, he's sitting in the middle seat, is sinking into my side. He's dead asleep. All his weight is pushing into me. And so I'm miserable, and I'm scared. Then in the aisle seat is this old woman, indeterminate, right? She's shrouded in layers of her, like, aquamarine sari with gold trim. It's just a heap that's sitting in that seat. And suddenly she stirs, right? So she's moving, and I'm curious, so I'm looking at her. And then she's rummaging around in bags, under the seat in front of her. And then emerges this bony, ancient hand. And in it is a little piece of muruka, right? A gentle reminder, a tasty treat, a little piece of home, right? Coming from that ancient, bony hand. So I take it, and I got to tell you, I must have been seeming incredibly desperate, incredibly scared, and probably overflowing with a look of gratitude, because she just smiled, right? She turned, pulled aside the shroud, smiled at me, and said, "Koi baat nahi." It's nothing, right? So that was anchor one. That was a good moment for me. That got me through the rest of that journey. Cut to New York. Everyone's there. My mom's there. My dad's there. Their friends are there. All these faces of all these physicians that made the great Indian doctors migration of the early 80s, right? They'd all been there for a while. And they were all there for me because I was the first wave. I was the first kid. And they were all there to assess, what's he going to do? How's this going to be for him? How's it going to be for us? Is he going to flip out? They were there to assess what this reception was going to be like. It did not go well. We were at Smiley's Pizza in Brooklyn, in Park Slope, and sitting in this place, kind of indiscriminate, just a lot of light and busyness and smells that were unfamiliar to me. And they put this triangular heap of cheese and red, this miasmic kind of gloppy, oozing thing in front of me and said, "Have at it." And I was starving. But the cheese, it was so much cheese. It was too much cheese. It was too much of everything. So, next scene. The slice of pizza is slowly arcing through the air, hanging there. Everyone's frozen in time. Mouths agape, jaws on the floor. No one's moving. And then slap, it hits the rear wall. And it hangs there for a moment, right? Before slowly smearing down to the floor. And then nobody moves. Everyone's frozen. I'm pissed. I storm outside. Everything's different. The smells are different. The exhaust smells different. The streets smell different. The sounds may be similar, but somehow off. I don't feel at home. It's so cold. And Dadi Amma, Dadaba, they're a million miles away. I miss them. I miss his quiet contemplation. I miss sitting by his side and reading my comics. I miss Dadi Amma's frenzied busyness in the kitchen and the hot tava constantly producing rotis and the smell of dal simmering on the stove. I miss all of that, and I realize I'm really kind of alone, right? I'm in an unfamiliar space with unfamiliar people whom I'm supposed to be familiar with, but it never happened, right? Later on in life, I studied early childhood development and learned, oh my God, what the hell did you guys do, right? This was not a very well thought out immigration process. So you can't just leave the kids in random places. Birth to age 7, right? So anyway, I'm outside, it's cold. And then warm hands, my father's hands, patting down a warm coat onto my shoulders. And he takes my hand and we walk. We walk to this corner bodega, right? Fluorescent lights, brighter than anything I've ever seen. I'm not used to that, right? The best you can get at an Indian store at that time was like a bulb dangling from the ceiling. And it's so bright in there, and it's shining down on this rack in the middle of the store. And that rack has a marvelous selection of chocolate. Right? So many different kinds of chocolate bars, more than I've ever seen in my life. And there in the center, my dad reaches for a Toblerone bar. Anybody? Toblerone? Kind of? Yeah, right. Yeah. So now we know, right? We know what's coming. I bite into that first little triangle of chocolate and nougat. Is it nougat in there? Something, right? And as we walk back, and suddenly the warmth is coming back. The familiarity is coming back. So much is coming back, right? And everything's feeling just a little bit better. And that was the start, right? So my dad died a couple of years ago, right? It was a hard process, but it was hard on all of us, but it was his time. And on that day when he passed, There wasn't a moment to process. There was paperwork and arrangements, and everything was like a NASCAR pit crew. What are we going to do with this dead guy, right? So that was kind of what the feeling was like, and I had to get out of there. So at a point where I'd handled what I needed to handle, and my family was sitting and breathing and taking in the moment, I left. I left the hospital. I turned down Seaview Avenue and walked toward the boardwalk, the harbor, and there's a bodega. So I walk into the bodega. I find the Toblerone. I break off a piece and I start walking down that long boardwalk, down the seashore, looking at the harbor, taking it in, remembering in chocolate Satori. Thank you.